welcome everybody. This is our bi-weekly webinar. I'm Ryan Poole. I'm the founder of RealTrade, also an agent like yourselves, been doing it for over 20 years. And we do this bi-weekly webinar to share value with you agents. You know, I'm the founder of RealTrade, which is online marketplace and social media platform for real estate. We have thousands of users, thousands of buyers and sellers on there. And it's my privilege here to host this with Jim. Jim's the quintessential entrepreneur. Not only is he an attorney, he founded an awesome title company called New Path Title and his awesome closing software, Title Leap. So we're excited for this topic, which is foreign buyers, is the headline topic. We're also going to go some stuff over the DOJ and the new Zillow. I don't know if everybody's seen that new buyer touring agreement that Zillow's put out, but we'll touch base on that. But go ahead, Jim. Why don't you take it from here?
I want to bring you guys information you can't hear anyplace else. That's my foremost goal, and make you more efficient. There are no bad questions. Anything you guys want to ask, please go in the chat and ask. You can send me a text 24/7. We'll have a little question and answer at the end. I want to get you in and out in 35 minutes or so. If you turn on your camera, I can gauge the response and we can move through the stuff quicker. If not, no worries. Time-saving tools. Ryan announces me as the quintessential entrepreneur. In the time of change right now is the best time to be a RealTrade agent. There's a lot going on that you guys can benefit from on RealTrade. These are times of change. RealTrade is a stable, and the tools that RealTrade gives you are going to survive these changes that were coming up.
Yeah.
And again, 24/7, text me any future topics. I really want to make this first discussion about you guys giving me input on what you think. This is a new, you want to jump right into it, Ryan?
About what? About the foreign buyers?
No, you want to jump right into the Sitzer update?
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously us agents are following this and things are turning. There's been one big update, I guess. NAR now, they're saying that it's going to be pushed from July to August, the new rules, right? So that we're going to have no cooperation agreements in the MLS at all, right? So we won't have those. We won't know exactly as buyers agents what the commission of the other agents offering until we reach out to them. And then also too, this got pushed back. The big change is that buyer broker agreements now have gotten pushed back to August, but it's coming, right? I mean, it's conversations. I'm sure we're all having them with our clients. I have sellers reaching out to me asking, wow, I've been following this in the news, Ryan, what's the deal with it? So constantly educating them, right? That's part of our job, as agents is educate our clients because it's a big one. It's in the news. So, and then of course the DOJ, right? Jim is reopening its case on NAR. There's some big interesting things coming out of that. They might feel that the Sitzer settlement doesn't go far enough. I know there's been a lot of speaking about NAR not making it mandatory for agents to
Well,
MLS, different things like that.
well, I think we may have shot ourselves in the foot a little bit. Like, here's the deal, right? Information travels so quickly. And there's a tendency for people to want to broadcast their knowledge and demonstrate their value proposition, agents and non-agents. And so the Department of Justice, I think, may have tuned in on that. But today is May 7th, 2024, and we're preparing together for the July 2024, when the proposed buyer's compensation and buyer's agency rules established in the settlement are going to take effect. Ryan, I don't know where you heard about August, but I'd love to see that article. I knew early on that wasn't likely that we were going to stay to that deadline. In addition to the our NAR and MLS buyer's comp agreements, there's a whole lot more going on, including, well, knowledge is power, right? And if you're weak, if you feel vulnerable, it's usually because you don't know. My goal is to educate and empower, and good agents with knowledge will thrive. I want to make sure everybody understands, right? If you're a good agent and you do the things you got to do, I'm going to tell you what my law school professor told me my last year in law school. He says, throw yourself into the river, let the current take you where it's gonna, do the work, you'll get out on the bank you need to get out on, and you're gonna survive. Yeah, that was very still.
That's a great analogy. I love it. I love the river analogy.
Throw yourself in the current. You can't fight the current.
Yep.
Throw yourself in. It's going to bring you where you need to be. If you don't get in the river, you're never going to get out where you need to be. I'm not sure who needs to get muted out. Let's see. That.
Yes.
So, Department of Justice reopened their case against NAR. You guys, I can't stress enough, this is pretty significant, right? What happened? Maybe the Department of Justice didn't think that NAR got beat up enough in Sitzer. I would argue they did, but regardless, they opened their case and they want to re-examine their prior order, their prior settlement. And if I had to read between the lines, I would tell you that probably agents at the Department of Justice were monitoring social media and the agent's reaction to the verdict and their workarounds. And so that possibly prompted possibly prompted the Department of Justice to take further action. Do I suggest we don't go to social media and advocate our positions and share thoughts? Absolutely, I do not advocate that we don't do that. I suggest we do that more. I'm just letting you know the playing field I'm aware of tells me that that stuff is going on. Here's the biggie, and I don't know if you guys are familiar with this. I have to minimize my screen because the office I'm working out of today. So by show of hands or not or something, if Ryan, if you want to let me know.
I
How
can
many of
see.
you guys are familiar with the Zillow 7-day touring agreement?
Yeah, I've read the whole thing.
Is anybody else raising their hand? No. Don't feel bad if you're not. Zillow just came out with this tool they're going to make available to everybody. We'll go over it in a second. Well, probably let's go over it right now. What is it? Let's see. Admit this person. The touring agreement is available on the Zillow website, and it basically says that instead of signing an agency agreement, as NAR in the settlement would suggest, you can sign this other agreement. The other agreement says that for the sole purpose of this agreement, you're going to work with this agent for 7 days and tour properties, right? So they came up with this little term called touring services. They invented this. Zillow invented this. This is not in a government establishment. This is Zillow saying we're going to come in and reinvent this verdict that was handed down to us in NAR and Sitzer. It says that we're going to tour properties with you for 7 days, and you're not going to owe us any money, and you're going to have no obligation to us. But if you do find properties you like, then we're going to, and also more importantly, that you don't have an agency agreement with another broker.
Correct.
And then if you do find a property, we're going to get into an agreement, and then here's the duration of the agreement. There is no fee for the touring services agreement. And the buyer shall not owe for the touring services. That's kind of redundant. If you're going to provide brokerage services beyond the touring services agreement, then you guys are going to enter into another agreement, and that's going to spell out the fees and commissions. Then there's a bunch of boilerplate about equal opportunity and fair housing and things like that. Here's my thoughts on the whole thing. Why is Zillow doing this? In my opinion, they are doing this to distinguish themselves in the market. Zillow's self-interested at the end of the day. We can all agree with that. And they're throwing this out there not as an altruistic tool. They're throwing this out there because this is going to benefit them. I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to say it feels like Zillow's giving the giant middle finger to the establishment.
Yeah.
I
I mean,
don't.
I could see this, Jim, is Zillow might require this agreement for the agents that are buying leads from Zillow, the buyers, the buyer leads from Zillow, right? So that they say, hey, you're going to have to sign this. They might make it online. Actually, they
No,
might.
it's available online. It's available on the Zillow website. I gave you
I'm
guys.
saying they might make it where they want the agents that are, buying leads from Zillow to sign this agreement with the buyer leads that they receive. I could definitely see that. You know,
What unpack that for me, Ryan? I'm not sure what that looks like. What you're describing.
And just one last time, please don't use this. Okay.
Mute Kate there. Yeah, no, it's basically obviously Zillow's one big differentiator from RealTrade to Zillow is we don't sell leads back to the agents off their own content, off their own listings, right?
Right.
So Zillow, their big moneymaker is buyer leads, right? That they're selling buyer leads off other agents'
Yeah.
listings, right? So what I'm saying is they could make this saying, hey, you received this lead from Zillow. You need to sign this buyer touring agreement with this buyer before you show them this house that they're interested in. You see what I'm saying? So basically, they're kind of protecting that buyer in the sense saying, hey, this is, you came from Zillow, you saw this property on Zillow, this agent's going to show it to you. You need to sign this, you all need
Yeah, I follow you. Yeah.
yeah, no, I could definitely
I
see that.
hadn't thought of that. One of the things that's interesting about the touring agreement is it allows you to enter into multiple touring agreements in multiple markets. So you sign this thing, you're a buyer and you're looking at property in Florida and you're looking at property in Texas. You can sign numerous of these, but they have to be limited to a geographic area. And you can have a buyer's agency agreement in California, theoretically, but you can enter into a touring agreement in Florida. It feels yucky to me, but we'll talk about more of that in a minute. I think that definitely Zillow is trying to lead the industry here. This is the best, brightest example I've seen yet in 40 years of doing this stuff, 20 years as an attorney, of a private party going out on a limb and saying this is where an industry should go. I don't know if that it's good for agents, but I know it's good for Zillow, or Zillow would never do it. And any agent may use this form. So it's available on the Zillow website. You got to talk to your brokers about it first, and we'll go over the pros and cons, I believe, of it in a minute. I believe it's another Zillow tool using to drive traffic to their site and establish their brand as a go-to destination for both consumers and industry. It's going to bring people to the website, no doubt about it. And I think that much like Realtor.com is trying to do, they're trying to set up, I don't know if you guys have seen the most recent Realtor.com advertising, but they're talking about like this is the industry destination for buyers and agents, buyers, sellers, and agents. Anyways, having said all that, I do see some potential benefits. Maybe it's an easier way to get your buyers into an exclusive buyer's agency agreement. You date before you get married, right? It's one page. It's not complicated. It's easy to read. It makes intuitive sense, and you ease your buyers in, and it's not intimidating. The buyer's agency agreement, in my humble opinion, is too long. It's overly complicated. It's intimidating. It's intimidating to anyone, including me. I look at the thing and it's not intimidating from the perspective that I don't understand it. It's intimidating to me from the perspective of if I'm a buyer and I think about all the buyers I talk to who really don't even understand the strengths or weaknesses under a contract, they're going to sign this additional document. It's potentially, I think that the Florida Association of Realtors can do a lot better job of simplifying the buyer's agency agreement. In summary, I'm torn. I think buyers will initially push back on buyer's agency agreements, but if every agent does a buyer's agency agreement, then buyers have no choice, right? It becomes the standard, it becomes annoying. But I'm not in favor of perpetuating the work for free mentality. So I see this interesting dynamic evolving, and I can see the benefit of getting a buyer relationship going quickly and easily. Zillow is going to do stuff like this more and more. They are constantly pushing the envelope. We've all seen Zillow taken numerous steps to push the envelope in directions we didn't anticipate. And this is just another example, right? And we've seen Zillow fail at a lot of stuff. So I don't feel this is intimidating. I feel this is knowledge that every agent must have, and think about if you or how you want to incorporate this in your practice. And we'll talk about it more and more. And I'm sure as the dialogue gets closer to August, and it's just going to be another topic that I don't think kills us.
I just want to add here too is like, we can do our own touring agreements. It doesn't have to be the Zillow one, right? You can talk to your broker. You guys could edit the one that they have, right? And not have to have it say Zillow copyrighted at the bottom, right? You could do your own touring agreement, right? You could change it up. So that's something, but I do see it as a stepping stone, right, into the
Right?
into the agency agreement, right? So it's kind of takes it takes your obligation saying, hey, I'm going to show you this property. There's no, you don't have to sign into an agency agreement yet, but like it's stating, hey, I'm showing you this house, right? So you are the person would be the procuring cause for the.
Well, you're going to show a bunch of houses. Theoretically, you're going to show a bunch of houses in a community. There is a one-time use agency agreement in the Florida forms. This is a little softer even than that one-time use. It just says, we're going to show you a bunch of actually in the one-time use agreement, in the single property agreement, there is a rate and there is a commission and all that stuff. This just says we're going to date before we get married. There's no commissions. We're going to sign other agreements if you find stuff you like. But again, it's uncomfortable to me, but I can see the benefit, and I'm hoping I'm not upsetting anyone. But definitely, if anybody has opinions, I'd love to hear them. You know, everybody on this podcast has called me at one time or another, and I would love to hear. Hopefully, you guys are comfortable with me. If I say something that doesn't jive, I want to hear what it is, and if I say something that you guys feel is right on, I'd love that feedback too. But regardless,
No, it's great. I mean, this is an ongoing saga right now with
yeah.
the NAR settlements and the DOJ and what other tech companies are doing. So it's great, Jim. We're sharing this information. We're all learning from this. Kate said, I think the Zillow touring agreement is laughable. We are not tour guides. Zillow agents might be.
I love it.
There you go.
You know, I heard about Ryan. When did you hear about these? I heard about this like 2 or 3 days ago.
I heard about it last week, actually, and I texted you a copy of it. So, like you said, it's just Zillow trying to insert its foot here and, kind of lead the conversation of what's happening, saying, hey, here's a stepping stone you can use before a buyer agency agreement. I mean, it's just their way of trying to lead the conversation right now.
I think so.
Yeah.
All right, without further ado, let's get into buyers, foreign buyer rules, and the changes to the rule and if anybody has any questions, now's the time to bring them up, or if you have any comments. But other than that, we'll slide right into foreign buyers and the updates to the law and some really great things Florida did for us to make this thing workable, navigable, just easy to get around. But anyways. All right. Were there any hands up, Ryan?
No, it's
No?
good. Keep going. This is the meat and potatoes of the webinar. I'm excited for this. And we have the perspective of an attorney, right, with this new foreign buyer law. So it's going to be a good one, Jim. Thanks for.
Yeah. I'm not going to whitewash it, you guys. This rule is confusing. Yeah, me too. When I hear people talk about it, I can just in my mind picture this matrix, and I wanted to set up a matrix for you guys. But instead of building a matrix, it just got really complicated. I just gave you some bullet points. But since the last time we talked about this topic, the state has done a really good job of making it digestible for agents to work around. I can't stress to you guys, I've never seen the state be so effective on an issue that could so dramatically affect us and do a great job of educating us and giving us tools. In this outline, I want to keep it really brief. I don't want to, the goal of the topic is don't spend time on buyers who can't close, avoid personal liability. Let's change that to avoid agent liability. Oh no, avoid personal liability as an agent.
Mhm.
Navigating in this space. And then the most important one, gain a unique value proposition for your past clients who now own property and may have to comply with the new law. So at the first of the year, an agent brought to my attention something I wasn't aware of under the law, and it's a great opportunity for you guys to market that. Yes, if you master the law, like many, it's a value proposition marketing opportunity. There's lots of laws. We're going to go over another one later on in the discussion. That's a value proposition that you can drop in your property owner's laps to start conversations. Here's where the law is spelled out in the contract. Everybody's seen this before. It's got all the 7 countries of concern. It's all spelled out for you guys.
Mhm.
The state of Florida, here's the big change. The state of Florida has recently provided a really good website and FAQs for agents to research if your foreign buyers from 7 restricted countries can purchase property in Florida. And here's the marketing opportunity. The rule that I was not aware of is if you owned existing properties, they need to register for ownership by January 1st, 2024, face pretty hefty fines. Full stop. Now you can figure out all the people that have been buyers in your transactions, see if they qualify. Every single property address that I entered into the website qualified as property that was restricted, and you can have these conversations with your seller, with your owners, and say, hey, are you guys registered? We'll go over the website in a minute. The 7 restricted countries are China, Russia, North Korea, Iran, Syria, Cuba, and Venezuela. How do you use the site? The only thing confusing about the website is this. You land on this site and it has only register a property or FAQs. The only thing confusing about this site that I found was you have to click on register a property to actually research a property. So aside from that, I think they did a great job. So you land on the site, register a property is actually how you research a property, and you go on here. And I will tell you, I spent a bunch of time this morning entering every property that I could think of. And here's my office, and lo and behold, it's a restricted property. You get a message. Enter. You gotta click search, not enter, not click enter. And so the property, can you guys see this? It's tiny,
Yeah.
tiny. It
Yeah,
says the property address you entered meets the requirements for registration. So if you're a buyer, now you've got to take into consideration, if you're a foreign buyer, now you've got to take into consideration the complications. If you're marketing to prior buyers and you're using this as a tool, a marketing value proposition tool, now you can reach out to your owner who was a buyer and say, hey, this is Federico. We just sold a property together, bought a property together. Just wanted to bring to your attention that you're a foreign buyer under Florida statute 692-203, and then you can send them a little outline on how they have to register, and really all you do is send them the website.
Cool. So they just have to register the property there as a foreign buyer if they're from one of those, 7 countries?
If you're from the 7, so we'll get into the details about the countries. That's where it gets confusing. So there's 2 criteria. There's property that's restricted, and then there's people that are restricted in the restricted properties. And if you're a restricted person in the restricted properties, then you go through here and you register. Registering is not complicated. Registering is not time consuming. Anybody can do it. But the point is, now agents have a real value proposition, and you can send your owners this link, the website, all the stuff. It's really easy to understand. And here's the best part, the FAQs are actually the FAQs that we want to know answers to. So if I look through these FAQs, these are all the answers real estate agents have been calling me about for the last year. Boom. Like, it's as if the state was actually doing a great job for us to do our job.
Here, Kate just had a great question here. Is there a clock on the time these properties were purchased? She has clients that purchased multiple properties with me 10 to 15 years ago. They're Venezuelans, but now they are U.S. citizens. So this would not apply to them. What about the others that remain foreign purchases but acquired property years ago? So I guess is the big question, is there like a time frame on these, like how long they purchased the properties?
All right, Kate. So here's the danger of doing live podcasts on legal topics. There's always a chance for somebody to ask you a question they hadn't thought of. And that is one I hadn't thought of. But if I break it down elementally, so there is a time frame for registering. And yes, prior owners, it goes back a long way. And so, or current owners goes back a long way. But the wrinkle that you bring in that I hadn't considered, if I understood you correctly, was they're now naturalized and they have domestic taxpayer IDs, right?
Yeah, I think that's what she's saying, yes.
So I would go out on a limb and say, because they're now domesticated, that they would not have reporting duties. But if you do report and you're not obligated to report, it's no big deal. I don't see how that corrupts your position as an owner of property if you do report and you have no duty to report. But I can't see, and I'd be happy to research this for you, I can't see why, if you're now domesticated, you're naturalized, you fall under one of the categories of exceptions that we're going to go over, I don't see why you would have a reporting duty now. And we'll go over one of the critical dates if they were one of the accepted parties before I think it's July 2023, but we'll go over that in a minute. You can register multiple properties. If you sell your property and you're one of these registered people, you simply go on the website and you let everybody know that you sold your property. This is the one that I got questioned about a lot. Do I have to do residential and business? Yes. What do I do if I'm have to register multiple owners? Everybody registers. And then there was one in here. Here's the one that kind of Kate was asking about. What I got questioned on was, if I am a minority partner in an entity that owns real property, do I have to report? Yes. So you own 1%, you own 0.1%, and your foreign owner is defined by the law. Do you have to report? Yes. You can't hide behind an entity. But the website's great, and just know that to register a property is the same place you go as to research a property. Easy enough. All right. Generally, summarizing the law. So we talked about properties that are protected. Now we're going to talk about the groups that fall within the properties that are protected properties. Foreign nationals from these countries with U.S. green cards are not restricted and can buy property, even agricultural land, just like U.S. citizens. So foreign nationals from these countries with U.S. green cards, it should say, or an exception. I'll doctor this up before I post it live. So there's a whole host of exceptions. If you're an accepted party, then you can buy property, even agricultural land, just like U.S. citizens. Those without green cards cannot buy agricultural land, and options are limited unless they have U.S. residency, a visa, or formal asylum. That's what it was, formal asylum status. They can buy one residential property less than 2 acres and at least 5 miles from a military critical infrastructure site, or any non-agricultural property that's at least 10 miles from a site. Here's the biggie. Ordinary Chinese citizens without special U.S. status cannot buy any property in Florida. Now, well, we'll get into it in a minute. Violators face property seizure by Florida and criminal penalties, including fines and jail time for themselves and anyone assisting them. This includes agents. We're going to go over what you do to avoid liability, but this is everybody in the transaction. Existing foreign property owners must report their ownership by January 1st, 2024, or incur daily fines of $1,000.
Jeez.
I got a call from a good friend of mine who has lots of family and friends and business colleagues from Venezuela. He had 30 properties. This was in early February. He identified a list of 30 properties that he knew friends and family had bought. He's not a real estate agent. He just called me up after he saw our foreign buyer podcast from a year ago, last July. And he said, are my friends victim of the law? And the answer was yes. And the money that we calculated quickly was stupid. Many properties fall within 10 miles of critical infrastructure, limiting options for citizens of the 7 restricted countries. I searched all the properties I could think of, my offices, my properties, my home. Every single one of them was restricted. I could not find an unrestricted property. I'm not going to tell you that there aren't unrestricted properties, but I couldn't find any properties that didn't fall victim of the law. The law mainly impacts Venezuelans and Chinese nationals as they are the most frequent potential parties subject to the law in Florida. So the vast number of people that we're dealing with are Chinese or Venezuelans, especially in Miami. And so that's what we're going to come up against. Buyers and owners cannot bypass the law through entities like LLCs or corporations or minority interests like we talked about before. BOI reporting through FinCEN is a federal law, and the foreign buyer laws are Florida state laws only, but they are both aimed at the same purpose, controlling who owns real property in Florida and the US. It's all about transparency. Oops. And there's a link to the FinCEN rules. Did somebody have a question? Nope.
What's going on?
Oh, Jaquaris joins in. Here's the FinCEN rules. This was a great example of a website that's terrible and an interface that's terrible, but it's doable. If you bring it to your client's attention, that's a whole nother marketing opportunity. FinCEN is another marketing opportunity for agents who master the law. It's like a gift. Think of this stuff as like a gift from the government. The more complex they make it, the more opportunities we have to prove our value. If you're an agent that stays on top of this stuff and you know what's going on, you don't have to know the exact rule, you just have to know where to find the rule. You're going to have a unique value marketing proposition that other agents aren't providing. And I would tell you, if you're here with us today, you're one of those agents that's going to be able to capitalize on this stuff. Treat all your client. This is very, very, very important. I'm going to put a link here in the future to the FinCEN outline I'm going to generate for you guys. This is one of the most important takeaways from the discussion today. Treat all your clients the same way. There are testers checking to see that agents are discriminating. When the law was first launched, I received a whole bunch of calls from agents, and they were calling me with these strange buyers that were, and they gave me the dialogue, the scripts that they were having these conversations with the buyer. It was clear to me that these were testers. Since the first of the year, I haven't received any of these calls from agents, but I'm not going to tell you that they don't exist. I'm just going to say I haven't received the calls from agents. Maybe agents are getting more savvy or the testers aren't testing as much, but I try to give you guys the feedback I get from other agents. My suggestion is early in your client relationship, send them an email with the following statement. Before we get started, I just want to make sure you're aware of the new Florida law regarding purchases by certain foreign parties. At closing, the title company will have you sign an affidavit that states you're not a foreign party under the law. If you are not sure if this applies to you, let me know and we'll find a lawyer who can give you an opinion. An agent's best practice. What do you think, Ryan?
No, it's true. We got a great attorney here that can give a good opinion on this.
Well, an agent's best practice is always to give 3 vendors in any situation, right? Everybody has that preferred inspector they like to work with. If something blows up, I want to momentarily take an aside. If you guys aren't aware, our litigator guy Quattlebaum just settled a case against a bad inspector. In other words, just to take a momentary digression on property inspectors, I have never once heard of a law firm suing a property inspector and winning, and maybe they're out there, I'm just not aware, and winning a judgment for their client because the property inspector was negligent or didn't do a great, let's just say didn't do a great job, right? In all these property inspector agreements, they've given them an out for everything. But we just won a case against a property inspector who didn't do a great job. The buyer was enamored. It was a Johnson v. Davis case. It was a seller's disclosure case, and the inspector did a bad job, and we got a judgment against the inspector, and we got a judgment against the seller. And the buyer's ecstatic. And they should have been, it was one of these cases where the seller absolutely covered up, and then the inspector did a terrible job. So in any situation, and you don't want to be, my point I was trying to make is you don't want to be the agent that referred that one inspector that was the subject of the lawsuit. You want to be the agent that gave 3 vendors. You can always say, I've worked with this agent, I've worked with this inspector a lot, and I really like the way they work, but you don't want to just give one referral. We've handled several of these foreign buyer matters. We did a couple of them were easily avoidable early on, had this website been available at the time we were contacted by the client, by the realtor. And a few of these things lingered on for months. They were expensive. They were time consuming. And worst, they didn't close. I had one agent that I was working with up in Port St. Lucie. I don't see her on the call today, but this thing won't drug on for 6 or 7 months. They kept extending the contract. We were looking for exceptions. We had to bring in an immigration lawyer. By the time we were done, I think it was $3,500, and the buyer, we couldn't find an exception and they didn't close. Had this website been available at that time, no lawyers would have been needed, and they could have easily breezed through, and the agent could have been, when I say breezed through, I meant not worked on by the agents, and then they would have gotten on to productive work, and we wouldn't have incurred a bill with somebody who nobody likes to spend money on a lawyer when they don't get their way. So having said all that, do you guys have any questions on these rules, on the foreign buyer rules? I wanted to keep it short. If I go down the rabbit hole on this thing, it only leads to unnecessary confusion. Just like the condo laws, keep it short and tight. 3 stories or more, close to the sea. There's going to be reporting, there's going to be duties, there's going to be inspections and milestones. Even if it's not close to the sea, you're still going to have those duties. 2 stories or under, there's nothing going on. So I try to keep this kind of like black and white, like that stuff. If you have questions, you can always text me 24/7, but I'm open for question and answer right now.
Here, Kate I can't find the link we're referring to. Can you copy and paste the Secure Florida link into the chat, Jim, for the, so they can read the FAQs and the, the how to register it. There you go. Perfect.
And if you guys want, you can always go to our website. You can grab all this content. We make it available, and you guys can go to www.newpathtitle.com, and you can click on Realtor Resources, and all this stuff is in Realtor Resources made available for you guys.
Yep.
That's the goal.
So the big takeaway on this is, especially here in Florida, because, I have had China buyers in the past, and obviously I know a lot of my agent friends work with a lot of clients from Venezuela. Is like, this is one perfect way to get in front of your possible sellers, right? That you can, share this information, with them about having to register their property. That's a big one. You could seem like a hero. Otherwise, what is $1,000 a day after January?
Yeah, and beneficial ownership interest reporting, right? You go through your Rolodex, your phone's not ringing off the hook. Even if your phone is ringing off the hook, you go through your Rolodex of people who may have these issues, or you send out a blanket email of everybody you've dealt. So there's a good way. So you don't want to potentially go through and just pick out the people you think might be subject to these rules, because that could be discriminating in the eyes of a tester. You go through your Rolodex and you go with everybody you've closed with, and you send them this information. And even if they don't have an issue, they might know somebody that has an issue. For example, the gentleman who called me, and he said he has 30 properties. He had a list of 30 properties that friends and family and colleagues have closed on from Venezuela, and now they're all going to the FinCEN reporting, and they're doing their BOI report, their FinCEN website. They're doing their BOI reporting, and they're going to not pay those fines. And he's a hero to his friends and family and colleagues. You guys can be a hero to all your past agents, all your past buyers and sellers. And if they sold property and they thought that they and they were no longer required under the foreign buyer rules, then you instruct them to go to the website and register the fact that they sold the property. There's another one I just thought of that you guys can use to generate conversations with your clients. If you sold property for them and they no longer comport with foreign ownership, now they go to the website and they take their properties off the list. Boom. Federico, you're a genius. Thank you so much. I can't believe you gave me that tip. That's the type of stuff that builds relationships. I don't need to tell you guys. You know all the obvious. Anything else you guys want to cover on this topic, or any other? Aquarius, you always have questions. I can't imagine you don't have any right now. All right, you guys, I want to tell you that it is always a pleasure to bring this stuff, and we love bringing agents value. We have a number of products we can use to bring you guys value. The one that works really well for us most recently, and agents are getting, they're raving to me over, is our title advances. And if you haven't used them, go to titleadvance.io, and this stuff works. It just helps agents. And if you have clean properties that don't have issues, that's as good as knowing that you have a property that has issues, because you know that you're not going to, it's just not going to take up a ton of time in closing from a title perspective. Ryan, you wanna give your value plug for RealTrade?
I want to say, Jim, no, it's a pleasure doing this. I enjoy doing this, our biweekly webinars, sharing values with fellow agents. Amazing. I just can't say enough things, guys. Title Advance, which I'm going to share the link right in the chat right here, right now, is a free tool for us agents. And let me tell you something, every listing appointment that I go into, I get a free Title Advance. Share it with the possible sellers, and you look like such an educated agent, because you're like, hey, did you know that you had a lien on this property, or did you know that you had this second mortgage? So you seem informed, and it really does differentiate yourselves going into listing appointments. Of course, with the new NAR settlements, right? A lot of the sellers are more educated. They're interviewing more agents, right, for the job. So you definitely look like an educated agent. So can't say enough great things about that. Too, also, Jim, which you touched on a little bit, but Jim offers that this free Title Advance is free, but he also offers some awesome closing software called Title Leap, which is a free contract coordinator for your agents that keep track of all your drop dead dates. It's literally right there in the portal. It's free for us agents. And let me tell you something, having closed with other title companies where I'm the buyer's agent, and they pick title, I really miss not having a Title Leap. So it's a great software. I tell agents to check that out, and it's something that New Path Title offers for us agents. And I just wanted to speak again on my own company, on RealTrade. Hey, I'm a fellow agent in there with the trenches with you, and I wanted to disrupt what Zillow's doing, these other online portals. I wanted to power us agents, literally why I created RealTrade. It's an online marketplace and social media platform for real estate. Nice thing is it's free for agents to join, right? Doesn't cost you anything. And you create a profile. We import all your listings for you. You're the point of contact. You can get free leads. I just had an agent call me the other day, go, Ryan, man, I had a direct buyer off my own listing, call me, and we're putting together a deal. So it makes me feel really good when that types of things happen. So not only can you get free leads, you can network with other agents on the platform and post to the social feed. It helps sell properties quicker and connect with awesome service providers like Jim, like some awesome lenders here. We have Jeff Stewart on the call today. He's one of the lenders, the vendors. So any questions that you have that you can ask actually on the RealTrade social and help promote your properties, and it's free for agents. It's an awesome service, so it's great. I want everybody to check that out. I'll put a link to RealTrade in the chat.
Hey, Ryan,
Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
we provide financing for foreign nationals too. So if anyone has a question about if they're qualified, I can help you with that.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, it's definitely not the landscape it was a year ago with confusion. There's lots of easy tools and lots of resources. And then the resources are easy to use. I want to leave you guys with another little nugget that I learned yesterday. So are you guys familiar, and Title Advance reveals this, are you guys familiar with the Y Green and PACE loans? I know we talk about it a lot, but I looked at my first dozen mortgages that were recorded against real property. For whatever reason, our guy Scott, he does the Title Advance research, and he puts the reports together, and I go through them and I give agents the heads up what they should be expecting at closing. We do a little follow-up. So I stumbled across a bunch of Y Green and PACE stuff yesterday. And so the issue is, if the property has, you find the telltale sign is you find an older home and it's got brand new windows. You find an older home and it's kind of dilapidated, lots of maintenance, and you find a new roof. And so one of the things you want to ask your sellers is, hey, do you have a Y Green loan or a PACE loan? And that's a disclosure in the FAR bar. But then the issue is, how do you deal with it on a title perspective? So in the Title Advance, you've got a lot of sellers who are not going to tell you if they have a Y Green loan or a PACE loan, because they are told by the person who gave them the loan, these loans are assumable, you don't have to pay it off, the buyer is going to assume it. That's never going to happen, not in this lifetime. Buyers never want to assume it, and buyers' lenders will never allow you to assume it. And I can see Jeff nodding his head or shaking his head, because we've all seen this before. A lot of us have seen this before, a lot of us haven't. My point is, The title advance is going to reveal the Y green loan or the PACE loan early on, like Ryan suggested, even when you go to the listing appointment. But if you're making an offer, it's going to reveal it when you make the offer, if you get your title advance ahead of the offer. And here's the issue. The Y green and the PACE lender record a document in the public record. It doesn't show up as a mortgage. It shows up as a memorandum of agreement. And in every single one of these things that I saw, it says that they're going to later, so when you start getting the work done, they're going to record this memo. And then when the work is finished, they're supposed to record another document that says what the final balance of the loan is. So in the initial recording, they record a document that says the annual charge is going to be X, but they don't tell you what the final balance of the loan is. And in none of these transactions could I see where they actually recorded the final balance. They didn't do their entire job. So it's a mystery until you get to the closing table what the value of these things is. Now, if you're an owner that understands these things, there's probably a document that they possess somewhere, but it's not been my experience that sellers track this stuff or maintain this stuff or do a great job of administering this stuff on their side. So the moral of the story is get the title advance, see if there's a Y green loan. It's still not going to tell you what the value is, but it's going to tell you, from my experience, the few that I've looked at, the dozen that I looked at yesterday, it's going to start the conversation early. And I don't want you to do the title agent's job, but I want you to make sure you get to the closing table. And if there's no equity in there, you're not going to get there. And some of these things can be hefty because some of these Y green loans, the work you would say, okay, it was a window replacement. It should be 20 to 30 grand, right? I saw one yesterday after I talked to the owner. The window replacement was $80,000. Full stop. 80
Yeah, I mean, they even have enough equity in their home to cover that amount, right? So imagine if you're the poor listing agent, you're getting all excited about putting this deal for sale, and now the deal's too skinny for you to even get a commission, right? I mean,
and not only that, you've got a seller that thinks they're going to the closing table and getting an extra 80 grand they're not getting.
Yeah, most lenders won't go second or even allow that on the going forward anyways. So
Thank you. Yeah. And then every seller that I've ever talked to that has issue with this, and I've received calls from a lot of agents, every single seller says the same thing. No, you're wrong. The person who sold me the loan said this was assumable. And that's not wrong. It's assumable, but the business element is there's no lender that's going to allow it to be assumed. And there's no buyer that's going to actually close and want to take on an additional debt. The buyer's giving you 500 grand at the day of closing, right? Giving the seller 500 grand. They don't want 500 grand and an ongoing debt. They want to give the 500 grand and walk away and be clean. So
Kate asked a quick question here is, so how do the tax authorities keep tabs on the loan balance? Are these loans were attached to the taxes? Where do they get attached to?
great question. Don't get me started because this is going to be an emotionally driven answer. But yes, the taxes are there's a branch of the government that is this like private public interface between the taxes, and I have no idea how the government got involved with this element. I understand what the goal was, but it's such an intertwined relationship between government and private enterprise. I see red flags and yellow flags everywhere. But yes, the easy answer is that the lender keeps the government updated, and then the government publishes the amount in the tax bill, and it's paid to the lender separately as a non-ad valorem. There are, interestingly enough, there are some municipalities that are refusing to incorporate the bill in the lender's bill in the tax bill. I just heard a story the other day from part of Florida where a woman was losing her house. She had no idea why, and the tax collector was refusing to include the lender's charge in the annual tax bill. And the tax collector's position in that municipality was, in that county was, we don't think it's just, and we don't want to be responsible. We don't want to be intertwined. We don't want to be in bed on that issue. So again, knowledge is power, not knowledge is weakness and vulnerability. My goal is to keep you guys knowledgeable. Just be aware it's out there. Title Advance gets you ahead of the ball every time.
I mean, that's it. Just use a title advance, whether you're making offers or trying to get a listing. I mean, it's going to show up. It could just save you so much headaches in the future. It's awesome, Jim.
Yeah, and the other one that we came up with recently, that we encountered recently, was at the office, was the COVID forbearance second mortgages. Again, that was another $80,000 last minute. We can go into that later, but on our website, we created something where you guys can send us the contract, or you can order title products. This also lives on the Title Advance website. So you can go here, you can order a title advance, you can order a title commitment, or you can order a Prop Logic search, and we'll refund you the value of the commitment or the Prop Logic search at closing. So if you or your buyer, if you get a dirty title advance and you want to figure out exactly what's going on, title advances are just a superficial search. You can go to our website and you can order the actual products that we order, and I'll credit you for those products at the closing. Cool, you guys. It has truly been an honor and a pleasure to serve you one more time. And if you guys have questions, like you always do, please text me and we'll get back to you. We'll figure out the answers and we'll make it great content to sharpen the realtor's sword for the benefit of the profession.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah. Thanks, Ryan.